The core of my complaint with TikTok is that they did not follow their own guidelines concerning hate speech. And they included at Autism Challenge, which clearly denotes one of their listed groups, which is a person with a disability, and they allowed those creators to post that, which also falls under bullying and harassment. I want to know the recourse. I want to know if the creators of the at Autism Challenge were reprimanded somehow, some way, either penalized by being blocked forever or given some kind of a monetary fine. And I want to know what the recourse is for the company itself. How are they self-monitoring? Because they clearly blocked their own rules. My issue, as a disability advocate for over 20 years, is the at Autism Challenge that was allowed on TikTok. That flies against the TikTok guidelines of what they publish that they are not to do. And they have done that. They have allowed this reprehensible content on there. I pulled up their guidelines. Anybody can see it. And it clearly states right here, hate speech, attacks on protected groups. This hate speech, it says, we do not tolerate content that attacks or incites violence against an individual or group of individuals on the basis of protected attributes. Okay, so under that, they list race, ethnicity, national origin, religion, caste, sexual orientation, sex, gender identity, serious disease or disability. And the last one is immigration status. Okay, so they clearly list this. And then they have do not post content that dehumanizes or incites violence or hatred against individuals or groups based on these attributes listed above, including but not limited to, and then they have another list. Okay, well, in that at Autism Challenge, that flies in the face of their own guidelines. And I asked them by email, what are they going to do that this, number one, doesn't happen again? In other words, follow your own rules. And number two, what are the consequences of the individual who posted that? Now, I know that there is a communication defamation law that came out in 1995 stating that, social media has become so prevalent that communication law really changes on a daily basis worldwide. But I think that law was passed due to the incredible liability for all these companies that are, they're allowing individuals and groups to post whatever they want. So there has to be guidelines in place. I mean, you can't be sued over everything, but we're in such a litigious society that everyone does want to sue. So I did kind of look at that and I thought, that doesn't apply. That just doesn't apply here because it states in their guidelines, in the company guidelines, that is not to be posted, and they allowed it to be posted. Okay, so the communication Decency Act, that's where a person or an artist who made the content is the one who you should sue if you have a problem with. But according to their own rules, they allowed it on their platform, and they allowed it to run for a while. I just, you know, you can't teach someone or an organization morality. You can't. And that's why there's laws. You have to have laws, um, because some groups or people, they just, they don't, they, they have no ethics and they have no morality. So that's why there's laws. So I reached out to them and I wanted to find out, what are you going to do about this? What kind of recourse do the people who were harmed in this? But I do know of individuals who were um, very depressed and personally and emotionally harmed by the spread of this challenge that defamed people with autism, people with disabilities. I find that disgusting, but some people evidently thought it was cute and fun, and they wanted to enter into the challenge. Making fun of people with autism. I mean, this is a lifelong disability. Nobody gets cured from autism. No, there is no cure. It's a neurological behavioral disorder. People are born with it. You can't cure it. We're trying, but to make fun of someone and turn that into some kind of little cyber game is I just find it reprehensible. So I'm glad that it was eventually taken off. Kudos for that. But what are the consequences for the artists who post this content? That's what I want to know. What are the consequences? Because in our society, if there are no consequences for someone's actions, they will just keep doing it again and again and again. And that's why there's laws. Okay, so number one, I want to find out from the company what were or what are the consequences of the people who initiated that challenge. And number two, why didn't you follow your own guidelines? What are you going to do to give your own self recourse for not following the guidelines? So, yes, I would sure like an apology on behalf of the autism community and the 20% of Americans who have disabilities. I don't know that people realize that, but 1 in 4 of Americans have some form of a disability. I particularly concentrate in the autism realm because I have 2 of my 4 kids were born on the spectrum, and I never would have guessed that, but it is a reality. So I deal with that on a daily basis, and it's near and dear to my heart. Currently, I'm a writer for Autism Moms Are Beautiful magazine, the AMAB. Fabulous, fabulous magazine, full of good tips and personal stories of what moms and caretakers, and yes, even dads, of people on the autism spectrum deal with on a daily, weekly, monthly, and annual basis, and including these kind of social issues that come up. I really don't understand it, but I guess it is not for me to understand. It is for me to get the word out and to create my own challenge to those who don't understand. If you don't understand a person with a disability or a person with autism, ask, help them, investigate, make fun of them. But that's all I have to say.
What is the idea of this challenge, or it's inappropriate to say?
The idea of the challenge, from what I understood and from the horrible little clips of the people who participated in it, was to make fun of facial gestures of people on the spectrum. There is something called stimming that people with, Tourette's or nonverbal autistic people do, and it's a nervous disorder. And a lot of times they will stim to calm themselves down. It's a nervous disorder. It's like when people have obsessive compulsive disorder, and they have to keep doing things repetitively over and over and over and over and over. Well, stimming helps that as well. Say somebody who is nonverbal, and they get upset or they're frustrated because they can't speak, or they can't finish a task, or they cannot communicate. They will maybe take their hands and do something like this, and the pressure points are important to them as well. And people skilled in ABA or applied behavior analysis, they understand about that. There's all kinds of pressure points. But yes, you'll see them doing this, and they're very frustrated. They're trying to complete a task, something that can be as simple as finishing a puzzle, pulling up their pants, tying a shoe. Most of them cannot tie a shoelace. All the things that we take for granted. Closing a cabinet door. And they'll do it over and over and over and over and over and over. It's part of the obsessive compulsive disorder, but they will do these things in order to complete the task, and their intent on completing these tasks is very frustrating to them, and so they will stim. And people in that little autism challenge were making fun of that, and they were also using their facial gestures to make fun of people with autism, and cocking their head, rolling their eyes, and doing things that these people on the spectrum with disabilities cannot help. They can't help that. Just like maybe you can't help that you have brown eyes. You can't help that. You can't help that you, I don't know, that you're 5'2". I mean, they can't help that. Why make fun of them? Help them. So yes, I would like to see some consequences for these companies and these people, these artists that create these challenges and that participate in the challenges. I would like to see some recourse on that, and that is all I have to say. And if anybody wants to contact me, to help report this. So if you want to contact me, it would be Maria Merrick, MERRICK 500 @gmail.com. That's Maria Merrick, MERRICK 500 @gmail.com. And that is all I have to say.
Tell me, please, how can this kind of postings influence kids and teenagers in real life?
Well, they probably already know someone who has a disability, and they're scared. They're scared. They don't know how to communicate with them. So most of this kind of reprehensible behavior comes from fear. They're scared. They're like, wow, they're so different. They're so different. What do we do? Um, I remember years and years ago when my kids were riding the bus, and then I had two on the special needs buses, and then two on the regular bus. I mean, what's regular anymore? Um, but I remember that the kids with autism, they came a little earlier. They were dropped off earlier, and I had a great deal of difficulty getting them in, getting them acclimated, and so sometimes I would just keep them there on the driveway with me, waiting. Usually with the neighbor to help me because one of them liked to run away all the time. Poof, he's gone. That's called elopement, by the way, where they they run away, they climb out windows, they're gone. They love to run. They should be in the Special Olympics. They run so fast. Um, but I remember that particular child was waiting there on the driveway with me for the other children who were getting off the regular buses, and the bus pulled up, and one of the kids on the bus, one of my daughter's classmates, started she started to make fun of the little brother that she saw that was on the driveway, and he was doing some odd behavior. Well, my daughter got a little upset, and she talked to her about that, and everybody in the bus heard it, and said that that's really uncool of you. He knows things that you don't know. You should get to know him. And so the next day, the bus comes, and he's out there with me, the one with autism, the younger brother is out there in the driveway making these amazing geometric formations with the twigs, with the tree branches, that fall. And he was making all these incredible artistic shapes out of them on the driveway. And that girl who had made fun of him a few days prior was singing his praises. Was like, wow, look at the artwork that he's making. Oh my gosh, we should look at the artwork. And so she actually rose to the occasion, and she noticed, and she wasn't scared anymore. Probably because my daughter had, given her a talking to. But in front of everybody on the bus, and everybody, she was singing his praises suddenly. And then everybody was looking out the window in the bus going, wow, look at that kid. Wow, look how talented he is. But it was her fear of the unknown. Wow, that kid's different. Ew. But she was able to see his beauty, a few days later, and then she was able to advertise it. And then from then on, anytime anybody started to make fun of an autistic kid or a kid with a disability, she gave him a beat down. I mean, not physically, obviously, but a verbal, talking to, what are you talking about? You can't talk to, what are you talking about? He goes to our school. He may have some talent that you don't know about, which, you can't do that. But yeah, it's basically fear. Fear of somebody being different than them. So yeah, it's my little vignette for today.
How can ordinary people, like me, for example, help the situation?
Well, there are a lot of sites online, to where you can learn about people with disabilities. I would say that autism got very popular, I believe it was last year, during the it was the blue pumpkin, the blue pumpkin during trick-or-treating time, during Halloween, which is a holiday that a lot of Americans celebrate, and it's called different things all over the world. But it was the blue pumpkin. Blue is the color for autism, and in April we celebrate Autism Awareness Month. And companies like Home Depot, they will put their blue light specials, literally will sell blue light bulbs, to make people more aware. I think what I would do is anytime you come across a person who seems different than you or is clearly struggling to speak or clearly struggling to communicate or to fit in, more than likely they are on the autism spectrum. It even includes Tourette's, syndrome. But just to reach out to them. Um, they used to be shunned and feared, and a lot of them still feel that way because the families want to protect them because people are so cruel. But my advice would be to be grassroots. You know, you, you don't have to get on the sides, but the next time you see a person or hear a person or of a family, or you come into contact with a person, or you see somebody in the grocery store, where they're struggling with their kids and their child is clearly not behaving, they may not be a brat, they may have autism, and you see them like slamming the doors, the freezer doors, or they're running away, or they're having a meltdown down. They may have autism. You don't know. So the best thing to do is not to chastise, not to make an ugly face, and not to be cruel, not to say, get that kid out of here. Help them. My gosh, you don't know if the mom may not have slept in 5 days because her child elopes. Um, you just don't know. So my advice is the next time you come into contact with someone who has a disability or someone with autism, help them.